All right, thanks everybody for coming. I'm Sergio, Vice Chair of Transport Workgroup, and we're going to treat this like a meeting. So it'll be a real working meeting, and I'll just do some introductory slides first. Paul Stusiak is the chair. He is hopefully online and can hear us and will be able to speak as well. That's me. Eric Finlay is the Vice Chair of Certification, and I'm also the Chair of Certification. And then, of course, we have Josh working hard in the background, keeping everything going. So Transport Workgroup, if you want to participate, the best spot to start is transport.reso.org. And we have everything linked through there, which will make your life easy in trying to find anything you need that Transport is working on. Let's read the antitrust policy, as this is going to be a real meeting. So RESO strives to increase competition in the marketplace and will not be a forum for anti-competitive conduct. The RESO antitrust policy governs the activities of RESO and its members, including this meeting. A link to the policy was emailed to you with the meeting agenda. Please consult RESO's counsel if you have any questions about the policy. So let's dive in. I'd like to start with just thanking the work group as a whole. We've been working on a lot of stuff. A lot of RCPs have been created. And I'd like to remind all the server vendors out there that all of these need some implementation. So we're still, even though some of these have been around for a year, maybe more, we still don't have multiple implementations. So please look at them. I provided links in here. You can link out to them right off the presentation if you download the presentation. You can also link out to all those from transport.reso.org. And let's get some implementations going and work with Josh to get yourself certified on those, and then we can move these up to actually ratified specifications. What have we been doing since the last meeting? So one of the things we worked on is days on market. There's a couple of issues with days on market that have been out there. One is that sometimes the servers aren't providing days on market. This may be for a variety of reasons. Often it's because they're downstream. Bottom line is we want, every time you do a query on any server, the days on market that is returned by that server is 100% correct. So how it's accomplished is opaque to the client. That means the client doesn't need to know, he just needs to look at it, and it's going to be correct. Like Brian Berger said yesterday, it's 100% up to the server vendors for their magical days on market calculations. So thanks to Brian Berger's and that great presentation yesterday, we've built out RCP 51. Brian did most of the work on that. And this is to resolve the situation where some servers don't update every record in their database every night when days on market changes. It's not efficient for the servers to do that, and it's also not efficient for the clients to do that, because the clients would have to download all the active listings every time, every evening. So there's a way to get around that, and that's RCP 51. Again, we're going to need 2 implementations, and Transport will probably be voting on that at the next meeting. So everyone, please do take a look at it and make sure you're happy with RCP 51 and have discussions in that RCP if there are any issues. I'm just going to summarize what it does just so that everyone understands it basically. Fields, it's basically adding 6 fields to the data dictionary. So we're going to have to work with DD to get those added. And there's 3 for days on market and 3 for cumulative days on market. So looking at just one of them, the days on market, the calculation is the same for both, and it's very, very simple. If your increment yes/no flag is false, all you have to do is return the increment base, days on market increment base. In the other case, if it's true, then all you do is you take your days on market increment base and you add today's date minus the days on market increment timestamp. So that gives you the delta, and obviously you're going to have to deal with the time zone and round to the nearest whole number. But with all that said and done, you should have the correct calculation for days on market. And again, this is, just to say it one more time, the calculation is still based on the server. All we're doing is The server told us it's still incrementing, therefore we need to do some math. It's very, very simple. And if the server ever changes the base or the increment timestamp, or the flag, you will be getting a notification that the record changed, so this should all work flawlessly. Any questions on days on market before I go on? All righty, we'll move along. The next thing we spent a lot of time on is subscriptions and filtering. Actually, not a lot of time, but it did come up that one of the things that was missing was a logical way to, well, I guess a consistent way to do authentication. The way it stands, it was set up to use bearer tokens, which may or may not work in many cases because your server will be sending the webhook information down to a client over their webhook URL. So there may be different requirements for authentication. So the workgroup asked that we do HMAC signatures for authentication, which is basically a way of getting, when you set up the subscription, you'll have to give us a token, and then the token gets hashed with the data on both sides so that we know it's the right person sending you the data. It's not super complicated, but it is going to be a breaking change for RCP 28. Which is the webhook RCP. And we're thinking the best way to deal with that is to leave the current version alone at 1.0.1. So if anybody's done it that way, it will work fine. And we'll just make a new version of that RCP 2.0.0 instead of trying to create a new RCP and starting from scratch. So does anybody have any questions on the authentication or would like to provide some more information on how that works? Feel free. This is a good time to discuss this. Got to be a little interactive here. No? I tried. All right. We'll move on. So another thing we looked at is data provenance. Essentially, data provenance is something that was sort of there. We have a bunch of fields called originating key, originating system name, originating ID, et cetera, but they don't provide a sort of a lineage of the, where the listing originally came from. So RCP 50 is there as a draft proposal, and you can look at that. Obviously attend the Transport Workgroup meetings if you want to provide more information, more input into that. But essentially, it's a way of giving you a set of where the listings start and every progression through every server. That way, you know where the original data came from. And again, feel free to ask questions and jump in at any time. Versioning. So there was lots of discussions about versioning in data dictionary, and it was different than how we were doing it in transport. So we did agree with data dictionary. They're using SemVer now, just as we are in transport. So that's your basic major minor patch, where a major version change means that it's a breaking change. Obviously, we don't want to do very many breaking changes, but occasionally they are necessary. One of the advantages of this is we're trying to say that minor versions will no longer need board approval. So this definitely gives us the ability to approve minor versions and put things through more quickly. The approval process changes to basically the data dictionary workgroup approves it, and then it gets reviewed and approved by transport and certification. Quick review, and then it will get passed. And that allows us to move more quickly. Now, as some of the presentations mentioned, Rob was mentioning, yesterday, there's definitely pros and cons to moving faster. So, we have to look at how fast we really want to move as we move forward. A lot of discussion has been happening on field deprecation and lookup deprecation. So that means we've got to get rid of fields, or they're duplicates, and we need to make a new field or get rid of a field that's a duplicate. There's a lot of discussion still happening on this, and there is a new data dictionary policy subgroup, and there's a half-day meeting scheduled because we've had a lot of meetings, but we haven't really been able to come up with a solution that works for everybody. So half-day meeting on April 29th or 30th. Send email if you need to get get in on that discussion. We have had discussions on the unique licensee identifier resolution protocol. So this is definitely gaining traction. It's a roadmap. It's a RESO roadmap item for 2025. Lots of MLSs have expressed interest. There's actually been a pilot program that Josh has been spearheading with about 15% of all the US licensees. It's currently a centralized service that they're experimenting with. Now, RESO doesn't really want to be the central point of failure for someone's unique licensee identifier. So we're looking at different methods of doing this. So we're looking for a decentralized solution. And it seems that the activity pub method is probably the best way to go. We have going to be a lot of outstanding questions. One of the major ones is how do you know what the network is? RESO certification has to certify that you are able to actually compute the ULI and do proper broadcast requests. You'd be able to do single ULIs. You can do merges when you discover things are the same. You can do splits when you discover licensees are different, et cetera, et cetera. So the subgroup that is responsible for this is the Activity Pub subgroup, and the chair is going to be Patrick Coca and Vice Chair Mark Leswing. They're going to meet the first Friday of the month at 1 p.m. And they'll try to get this to completion. There's definitely going to be, we need methods to advertise licensees. They're going to be discussing that as well. And there was a presentation on Tuesday. Hopefully you remember that one, the R&D Workgroup. And another possible use for Activity Pub is the listing advertisement. So that would, and that was also talked about yesterday at the Interoperability Workgroup. There is a proposal that's been created, and feel free to review that and join the subgroup if you're interested in helping out. All right, so I got to the end of the transport part. So this is the time when I'd like people to bring up what other topics of interest that they might have that we want to discuss. This is an open meeting, so we can discuss any topics that people come up and people have ideas for. I don't think there's mics out there, but feel free to raise your hand and provide some input. Yes. Hang on one sec, we got a mic coming.
We are in the process of doing the rule validations, RCP 19. So I was wondering, there was something in RCP 19 about rules versioning. Is anyone doing that? Like,
you mean versioning the data?
Versioning the rules so that if we have a client that is using the validation parser and they download like a set of rules and then the rules change.
Yeah, there's I believe there's a timestamp field in the resource, and that was the way we wanted to address it.
I know, but I'm thinking, is that
there's a rule version field?
Get a mic, Josh.
I'm not going to run like stacks, though. There's actually a rule version field in the rules resource if you look in the DDWiki.
Yes.
There's a version, so you could version the rules for each field.
I know, but then how do you communicate to the client that they need to download the new rules
The client should do a time pull every day, look for everything that's changed since the last rule record that you got with the last timestamp.
They don't have to do it by timestamp. They could also do it by the version as well.
Okay, so so the onus is on them. They need to download the latest rules and then run the validation parser.
Yes.
Okay, and then we can publish it by the versioning timestamp that the rule has changed. So now they need to validate it against the new rules.
Yes. Yes, and if, for instance, if they're using the entity events resource, it would also show up there as a change, and they would know that changed as well.
They're not using that, but they, we're trying to give them the validation parser, or they're going to write their own. We were just thinking, how do we communicate the rule set with them, that they get the initial the download from us, and then they need to get it every time?
Yeah, and
They need to pull periodically, right? I would imagine it's not going to change, every minute, right? So they could probably get away with pulling it once a day or whatever you want as the server vendor, right?
There's actually another way you can handle this too. Sergio mentioned the entity event resource. That doesn't have to be a full log of everything that happened in your system. You can use that for subsets of events as well. So if you really wanted to, you could actually do a webhook push to the client that the rules have changed from the entity event resource, and just tell them that it was the rules resource that changed.
Okay. And then another question about the rules is that is there a way to do, like, annotate the rules so that they could be replaced for certain variables, like how the rules are defined? There's no annotations or anything.
I think there's a rule description field. To check, hold. It's been a while since I've looked at this one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a rule description field. This resource actually has quite a few fields in it, but it hasn't been looked at for a while. So we could actually add extra stuff if the rules description doesn't do it for you.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, it is set up so that you can refer to fields, right? So all the rules, and then there's a grammar for it, so you should be able to refer to anything. And Josh, I believe there's also a way to still to look at people's roles as well. Did we put that in there? There is, right?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking more like, there is a way to refer to fields, but maybe those fields are like X, or, they're not actual fields, and they can be replaced for actual field names or something like that. So then we can, reuse some rules for multiple fields.
We definitely did not put that in there. Because it's really every field is going to be, it fires on a field, and you can use field names in there, but there's no there's no field replacement in there. I mean, if that's a requirement, we could look at.
We were just thinking about that. At the time when we were reviewing this RCP, I didn't think about it, but just thinking. So it's not defined that way. It's like every field will have its own rule.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Anyone else?
We actually have some new work potentially coming.
Some what?
Some new work potentially coming.
Okay.
And I think that they might take it on. They volunteered, or they've been voluntold. So we have some issues with schools right now. One of them is that oftentimes there is actually more than one elementary or middle or high school for a given area. San Francisco Bay Area, for example, there's a lottery system for 7 schools, in their area, and so we currently have fields in the property resource for that, as well as district fields. Thinking about bringing in external information from National Schools Database, where they have to file their ID for tax purposes. That defines quite a lot of other things too, like districts. It also defines other related information to schools. And one thing we'd like to do is be able to have more than one school of each type be attached to the listing. We don't want to just get rid of the current fields because there are a lot of people using them, like 90% of the industry is using them. So I think we're going to probably add a new school resource that allows people to define those schools, including the type. And this would be a collection of schools that are being attached to a record, rather than a bunch of different fields having the schools. So there's some other interest, I think, from Olga, mentioned, extend this to geographies in general. We have cities that have a similar situation. There are other things in the dictionary that would benefit from that. So I think we potentially have a new subgroup for geographies.
Well, either a subgroup, or we can always just talk about it as a work item at the next transport, depending on how long we think it'll take to fix. But I would say we could put that into the next transport meeting.
And I think we'd probably hand it over to DD eventually, but Transport could do some of the work to research the external standards, make sure it's going to be a good fit, and then probably turn it over to DD. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Paul Stusiak, in the sky, are you? Do you have anything to add?
Can we get the face of Paul up on the screens? That would be cool.
Sorry, I wasn't prepared for the face of Paul on the screen. Well, I could go back, I guess. Yeah.
I do not have anything to add at this time.
he is.
Thanks. Oh, look, so many of me.
Hey,
So
Paul.
cool.
Wow, it worked.
Hi,
Okay,
thanks.
Paul.
No, I don't have anything to add, so I'm going to turn myself mute again and get off the screen.
All right, thanks, Paul.
Ryan, I'm sure you have something to add. Come on. Want the
Not for
mic?
today.
I know
Not
you're
for
think-
today.
I know I'm talking to Brian now. I bet you have something.
All right, if I'm forced. We have a problem sometimes with unnecessarily downloading media that we didn't need to download, but enough of the information in the media record has changed that we are unsure until we download it again. I know Jeff has come up with something that might work, and I am interested in pursuing that and getting more people talking about that and seeing if we can move that forward.
Well, can we get some more info on what Jeff has come up with? Jeff? Is there a mic for Jeff?
So what the current proposal is in the discussion thread on the forum from the last meeting is adding 2 new fields, one being an algorithm so that we do a digest of the photo. And the reason for this is because some people are pre-rendering photos, some are rendering them as they go at the door, so they won't know the digests. There's two aspects to this. One, it will let downstream consumers validate their media against the record by doing the digest against the raw byte stream. And conversely, if it's generated media, they can compare that checksum that's in the record that they received with the one that's on the server, and if it doesn't change, they know that it's maybe the order that changed on the photo or the description that changed on the photo and not the byte stream itself. So the proposal is to introduce 2 new fields, one being an algorithm, the other being the checksum itself. And with those 2 pieces, you have the 2 different comparisons you can now do both against the byte array or between the client and the server data sets.
That sounds like a good idea. So we can definitely put that on the agenda for the next transport meeting.
Yeah, there's already a discussion thread if anyone wants to chime in on it. We've been talking about it for about 6 months now.
There's a discussion in the
On the transport GitHub.
Okay, so please everybody take a look at that. What is it called?
I think it's media checksum or something like that.
Media checksum. Okay, sounds great.
It's discussion 133, checksums on the media resource on the RESO standards transport discussions on GitHub.
Excellent. All right. Any new business from anybody else?
The other one I'll throw in there.
Olga.
Back to geographies, which school is just one example of that, right? Like if you look at a more generic case, besides schools, there are districts, areas, cities, etc. The problem for us has been that currently these lists are defined as part of metadata, which is a nightmare to operate. As an MLS, we get a request from an agent, cannot enter the listing because you're missing city or area or school district where this property is located. It's not everyday request, but it's not that rare as you might think. So we make an adjustment, we add the specific geography into the system, but next problem is communicating it to downstream, because now the new code goes into the property record, but there is no description for that code because it's part of metadata. And each metadata release, at least for us, comes with advanced communication, etc. Right? It's a release. So we've always been advocates of moving these lists out of metadata into resources. That's how we have it set up in REDS. And REDS certification allowed for that. I'm not sure if API certification allows for that or not. I know that when we went through API certification all those years ago, it was mandated that the lists are part of metadata. So I just want to emphasize one more motivator for us to get these lists out of metadata and have them as part of resources. Or at
Well,
least
can't
have
we put it in lookup? Because the lookup is the resource, is a resource, and it has timestamps, and it can do everything I think that you need for what you just said.
Probably our metadata, perhaps an API is set up to follow kind of RESO-based approach, I'm not sure. But we're not able to communicate all the relationships, the hierarchy, right? Where this school is part of that district and this
Wow,
district
but you
is part of
can
this
with
county.
related lookups. That's an RCP that
that's-
doesn't have the 2 implementations
Right,
yet.
but that's recent, right? We didn't.
No, it's been there for a year, maybe more.
Okay, for a year is recent.
It is. I can actually speak
That's
to this a little bit.
recent.
Well, okay,
Right.
okay.
We have live clients.
sure.
We can't. It's difficult to.
We've
tune
used,
out this
we actually did that for Bright, and they're using related lookup and
Very
lookup,
good,
and it
but
works very, very well with all the
Things
geographies.
like that is not that easy to churn up. It's a change for a client. Downstream, we can change our server, but it impacts live implementations, broker sites, etc. I don't have to explain
Yes,
to you.
yes, yes.
So I just want to make sure that I bring this up. Paul and I discussed it at the end of last conference, and I'm not sure if it's the way the MLS, the operations side is on the radar.
Yeah, so I want to speak to this a little bit, of course.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So to what Olga said, that's true. A lot of things right now are metadata driven. It's not always the easiest. Actually, related lookup is also metadata driven. And why is it in the metadata right now? It's because those fields are defined as single enumerations in the data dictionary. So if something's an enumeration in the dictionary, that's metadata. But if we're talking about something like schools, we could actually make it more dynamic, where we have a school resource instead. That's not metadata anymore, right? And then the values come from that instead. That would take a new kind of field in the dictionary. But I think this collection of schools idea could do that, because you would update your school's resource, which is a little bit metadata, but it's still a resource, versus having to do that in the lookup resource and the related lookup resource. See what I'm saying?
I do, but then you're adding more resources, which
it makes sense
I
in this
think
case
you can
because-
do it all in lookup and related lookup.
You could, definitely. But in this case, school has other information attached to it besides just the value. It's got all the other stuff that's part of school.
Yeah, yeah.
So the
I
type of
see that,
school,
but,
type
yeah.
of school, the name of the school, the district it's in, maybe city and postal codes it's in. So normal lookups are just one value. They don't have other records attached or other data attached to them. So it seems like in this case, maybe having a collection of school items makes sense.
I mean, definitely something worth talking about. We can bring that up as another agenda item for one of the upcoming transport groups.
And then same thing with city. We could have a city resource where it's more resource-based rather than metadata-based. It's the same thing. City right now,
Yeah, just
it's a
that there's-
single list. We don't have anything defined. It's an open enumeration. So there's no standardization. I think BPP, Dan Troop and BPP have been using some external lists that are combination of USPS data and census data, because there's municipalities and census designated places that the USPS data set doesn't cover. So I think that could be another potential area to bring in a new resource, because city has more dimensions to it than just the one value, as other things that might be attached to it as well. So maybe a new direction, possibly?
Could be, could be.
Well, yeah, there's boundary regions too.
True, there's boundary data that we could add to that as well.
And RESO doesn't provide those boundaries, but we can provide the field to transport the boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah, all the geographies, yeah, they have boundaries. Now we've started using that, right, in our map search and stuff, where you show the boundaries. So kind of makes sense to have resource, since they're not just a lookup. They have more metadata attached to it, more attributes.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's definitely worth talking about. Absolutely. Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, we have Jeff.
The only other one I'd like to get a bit more discussion on, we've been discussing on the forum again since the last meeting, is the priority field for entity events. The idea of having the concept of bulk changes. So then when data providers, do a data dictionary update, they're tens of millions of records, and it swamps the downstream. There's been an active discussion there, a couple of different proposals, just getting more feedback on that one so that we can bring something forward here to get the group to vote on, discuss.
Yeah, that's definitely of interest. I've heard many people talk about that as well, because you want to update your 100,000 records, but you don't want to stop your realtors' current changes from going through. So that would be very useful to that resource. My
reason for bringing it up, I've already heard the nasty words of people not touching it, like timestamps, leaving stuff out of entity events, because people don't want it to swamp their downstream consumers.
Yeah, very true, very true.
Well, good to hear. I mean, maybe you could post something in transport discussion? So
it's already there.
There is one.
Yeah, it's Transport 154 priority field for entity events resource.
That's good, perfect.
Nice. So, you can always add discussions. So everyone's allowed to add a discussion. So if you do come up with anything, outside of this meeting, feel free to add a discussion and see if it gets traction. Any other new business?